Alright guys, welcome back to a brand new video. Today we're going to be talking about ways to expand your fan base, expanding fan bases as a musician, as a band, whatever it may be. Let's jump into it straight away. I don't like messing around. Number one is content. Of course, I've talked about this many times in the past and a lot in recent videos, but creating content and pushing content for you or your band is really effective, really important on all social media platforms, on all of the internet possible ways that you can do it, your website, YouTube, Facebook, so on and so forth. These little bits of content are ways for your fans, for people to reach out to you, to connect to you, to get to know you. And that way they're going to connect with the band, with the music, whatever it may be, and they're going to become a fan and they're going to stick around and they're going to watch what you're doing and they're going to attend the gigs and the shows and things like that. It all kind of works domino effect in that way, I feel. So if you create little bits of behind the scene footage, ways that you can get to know the people in the band or the musician, really songs, demos, videos, music videos, anything that you're used to seeing bands create and release, do that. Just go onto your favorite band's website or Facebook right now and honestly just note down what they're doing and what they do. Take ideas from that and apply it to yourself because it's working for them, so obviously it's going to work for other people as well. I've kind of followed that path and tried that in the past and it has effectively worked for me too, so I'm just talking from experience a little bit as well. So find ways to connect with people, to connect with fans, to connect with people that are interested in your music or the music that you play by creating content, interesting content, and pushing it out there. Number two is word of mouth. Okay, this one is old-fashioned at this point, which is currently 2018, but I feel is just as effective all of these years later. Because if you go out of your way to play however many gigs, or you go out of your way to meet people, talk to people, connect to people in person, the word is going to spread. It's just a natural way of life. It's how life works. The word spreads about you as an individual. People are going to say whether you're a good or a bad person. Same thing applies to a band, a musician, music. And that's how I kind of feel about that in that way. Word of mouth is the most natural, most organic way to reach out to people, to connect to people and expand your fan base. It's what's worked for decades for so many of those bands that came out way before social media and the internet was a thing. Think about the 60s, 70s and 80s. How did Black Sabbath get big? How did Led Zeppelin get big? It was all word of mouth and obviously old school media and magazines, things like that as well. But word of mouth, I've spoke to my dad about this before and he would agree, and he's told me about how like his mates would tell him about certain bands and then he would tell his other mates about certain bands and then they'd go see those bands and so on and so forth. And it's a very natural, organic way to reach out to people. And if you play out of town or you play gigs and you're constantly out there doing what you're doing, that really does help and work at the end of the day. Number three is free stuff. I know that this is kind of controversial in a way because obviously musicians have to make money from somewhere or somehow. I'm a full-time musician, I'm completely aware of that. But if you're an artist or a band, especially writing original music in 2018, going in 2019, because it's currently November, December, whatever, giving away free stuff I've found is a really effective way to pull in the audience, to connect to the audience and to expand your fan base as well. Because if you give out free merch, free stickers, free gig tickets, some free songs, a free single, just tiny little things like that that you feel like you can give away or you feel like you can afford to give away, try it and use social media and the internet to push all of them things, and that will hopefully come back, and it should come back in return to help you out basically. Because if you give out a free single, that single is going to spread on the internet and the word of mouth will come into play and people go, oh, have you heard this new single by such and such? Have you heard this new single by this band? Blah, blah, blah. And they'll come back to check you out. And then hopefully, maybe, you never know, the next time that you release something, they'll actually buy it or they'll come to a gig or whatever it may be. So I believe that giving away tiny little bits of teasers of things as far as free things go is really effective for that reason. The fourth and final thing is gig swapping. This is something that, again, from personal experience, I know works because I've done it. Every tour that I've ever done, we kind of did like a gig swap situation. Every local gig that I've ever done, I've done a gig swap type of situation. And what I mean by that is if you reach out to any of the bands that you know in your local area or anyone that you don't know and you just reach out to them anyways and find them on social media, or bands not in your area because you want to play out of town or go on a tour or whatever it may be, reach out to those musicians and those bands and say, look, I'm thinking about putting this gig on. You'll get a chance to play it to our fans. We're going to promote the hell out of it. We're going to play such and such. We're going to make a really good night. Would you be interested in playing? And if they're interested, have a little bit of conversation. Think, okay, well, would you be interested in returning the favor if you ever want to put us onto a gig and you want us to play, and then we get to play to your fan base? And everyone's a winner in that situation, because if that's the case, they get to play it to your fan base, you get to play to their fan base, and both bands are expanding their fan base, so both bands are becoming better and helping each other out and sticking together in that way. And it's really important, and that's what it's all about in the music industry at the end of the day. Alright guys, hope you've enjoyed today's video about expanding your fan base. Be sure to subscribe, comment, like, whatever you want and maybe, and I'll see you in the next video.